There's a new report that Donald Trump has abandoned his goal of forcing regime change in Venezuela, essentially because it's difficult and complicated, and he no longer has the patience for it. And he's effectively gotten bored and moved on to other things, which sounds exactly like what Donald Trump would do when something gets difficult. As many of you know, whether you agree with me or you disagree with me, my position on Venezuela has been clear for years. The Chavez Maduro regimes have been absolutely disastrous for Venezuela. I want Maduro out for the benefit of the Venezuelan people, but the United States cannot have anything to do with it. The United States cannot be the entity that forces Maduro out. The United States cannot be the entity that chooses Nicolas Maduro's replacement. They can't be forced in or selected by the United States. Our involvement in Latin America over the last 50 plus years has been nothing short of catastrophic. We backed a coup in Honduras in 2009. Our involvement in Argentina and Chile with the repressive regimes of the 1970s, through which, by the way, my parents lived through which my parents lived. I was born in Argentina in 1984, just a few years after the military dictatorship fell. Disastrous American involvement there. In the 1980s, backing anti-communist Contra forces in Nicaragua while backing the right-wing Salvadoran government. Disastrous involvement in Latin America. And then more generally, I mean, our entire role and involvement with Cuba and the embargo dating back for decades. It's a very long list. We do not want the United States involved in Latin America. And for a while, it really seemed like getting involved in Venezuela was a top priority for Donald Trump. But, and this is good news, it seems that Donald Trump has become frustrated and sort of impatient with what's going on in Venezuela. And according to insiders, he's lost interest and basically moved on to a new toy. And that new toy might be Iran. It might be starting to do a bunch of rallies for the 2020 re-election campaign that is now getting going in earnest and in full force. This is good, okay? This is another reminder that issues which could really influence huge numbers of people's lives are dependent on whether Donald Trump is bored, which is horribly scary and disturbing and embarrassing for the United States on the national stage. But this is a good thing. And there's a very good new report in the Washington Post, which says that pushing regime change in Venezuela really was looking attractive to Trump during the winter. Trump wanted a win. He kind of needed a win. He had failed endlessly with China and the trade policy and the bogus destructive tariffs. The North Korea negotiations, negotiation set number 2 with Kim Jong-un failed. And he was really looking for a win with Venezuela. And then things sort of got stuck. Maduro didn't leave Venezuela when it seemed maybe he would. The Trump administration had no clear path to his removal. Reports from inside the White House are now that Donald Trump simply lost patience and he lost interest, sort of like a little kid who fails 3 times to beat a level in a video game and decides to go play with his Legos. And there are counterpoints to these reports from some who say, well, Trump hasn't abandoned Venezuela. He's going to keep working on it. It's just there's kind of a break right now. This is basically a case of who knew being president could be so hard, but it's a very good thing. It is terrible that our president just gets bored with difficult things and abandons them. This is not a good trait for a president, but in this particular case, it's good that Donald Trump got bored and frustrated with regime change in Venezuela, because we want the United States staying as far from regime change in Venezuela as possible. Now, it could be argued that the Obamacare repeal ultimately didn't happen for similar reasons, that Donald Trump got frustrated and bored. He wanted to do a repeal. He campaigned on a repeal. Republicans put together multiple ludicrous bills that would have been terrible for tens of millions of Americans. They didn't pass. Ultimately, even Republicans couldn't agree on the right way to repeal Obamacare. And then Trump ended up just removing the individual mandate for Obamacare in his tax reform plan and effectively has moved on. It seems that something similar has happened in Venezuela. And we just have to come to terms with the reality that American policy, both domestic and international, is ultimately coming down to whether staff can keep Donald Trump interested with pictures and charts and compliments about how great he would look if he was able to get something done. We've truly never seen anything like this before. We've seen crooked presidents before. We've seen presidents with all of the wrong ideas, reactionaries, neoliberal war hawks. We've seen all of that stuff before. We've even seen ignorance in presidents before. Remember George W. Bush. But we've never seen anything like this in the sense that the degree to which Donald Trump is bored with something or frustrated with the fact that diplomacy is a real thing. Things don't just happen at the snap of a finger, as maybe he's used to happening in the Trump organization. We've never had that boredom and frustration so directly determine what the legislative priorities are and the geopolitical priorities are of an entire administration. It's truly something else. Make sure you're following The David Pakman Show on Instagram, where we are asking you questions about what Donald Trump should and shouldn't be focusing on. At David Pakman Show is the David Pakman Show Instagram account. And while you're there, follow me on Instagram as well at david.pakman. If you love learning new things, you probably want to check this out. The David Pakman Show today is sponsored by Skillshare, and we're giving you 2 entire months of free access to Skillshare when you click the link underneath this video. Skillshare is a vibrant online learning community offering more than 25,000 video classes on just about anything you can think of. Get better at playing an instrument. Learn to use Photoshop, how to edit videos. They have classes on drawing, painting, business, cooking, nutrition, personal productivity, and I'm not even really scratching the surface. I recently took a great class on introductory watercolor painting. I'm still not good, but I am learning, and you can access the entire library of fun, easy to use online courses for free for 2 months by using the link underneath this video. 2 months of learning something that's totally new to you, something you want to get better at, something you already love, or you can get ahead in your career by learning new skills that will help you at your job. I've gotten a ton out of it. Pat has taken some courses that he's found really valuable, and I think you'll love it too. Get started for free by clicking the link under this video.